Welcome to the Dom.Hockey Podcast, proudly presented by Bench Rates. Created by a former hockey player, Bench Rates uses a proprietary algorithm to assign a true monetary value to a player's on-ice contributions and lets you compare that value directly to his cap hit. Bench Rates evaluates professional players across leagues worldwide, including the NHL and AHL. Learn more at benchrates.com. Also presented by McKeen's Hockey. McKeen's produces the premier NHL draft guide featuring more than 200 player reports and comprehensive rankings. They also deliver in-depth prospect coverage through their annual team-by-team rankings and their trusted hockey pool yearbook. Visit mckeens.com and subscribe for just $16.50 Canadian for 3 months. It is Saturday morning, and it's time for another episode of Dom.Hockey the Podcast. Apologies for a little bit of a delay. This is what happens when we try to do these things live. Dom, sorry about the power outage that we had to work through here, but glad we were able to get up and running online here. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I just hope the power stays on. It's a little dark outside, so we'll see what happens. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's Saturday morning. Can never complain about it being the weekend. Still the dog days of the hockey season, but
I brought up my little friend with us today.
Well, that always makes it better. Always makes it better. Not a lot going on, but we did get some news from Providence and the Hlinka Gretzky tournament's coming up, and this will probably be a shorter episode, but we always wanted to jump on and at least give you a little bit of something here. Dom, where do you want to start?
Let's start with the changes in Providence. Start with Ryan Ward. Basically, what I wanted was an outside voice, somebody who's good with kids or younger players, understands the game, and I'm pretty happy with Ward being brought in. According to a lot of people, he was coveted by other organizations. He has a reputation of being great with kids, letting them play to their strengths, developing them, and letting them play to their strengths also helps him progress in other areas. And I look at Cooper Simpson, who was predominantly known as a goal scorer, how his game evolved and he became not only a goal scorer, but a playmaker under Ward in Youngstown. So with him and Ryan Bourque only being there for a year, you've got two outside voices, outside set of eyes. Ward's going to look after the defense. Bourque's going to look after the forwards. So I think with the number of prospects that are going to be coming in the next couple of years, I think that's a good hire. With Whitfield, and I know you'll probably give me some flack for this, Chris, and I know those listening are going to give me a lot of flack. I was disappointed in the hiring when it was announced, but as time went on and I had time to think about it, it grew upon me, and I'm okay with it. Now,
that's exactly what happened with me.
Yeah, I've got some quotes from Whitfield here that we should go over. But first of all, your thoughts on Ward and Whitfield.
Yeah, so like you said, I was also initially a little disappointed in the hiring of Whitfield, but then when I saw and looked into what Ryan Ward brings to the table, I actually started to like it. I think together, and then like you said, Ryan Bourque as part of the staff, who last year was his first year there. I think you've got a little bit of old in Whitfield of what they were trying to do, but yet you're mixing in some of that new, working with the youth.
and we've talked about it before, it's the assistant coaches who are working with the players day in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
So having those guys be able to work with the players to implement what Trent Whitfield is trying to do, I'm excited to see what it does for Providence. And this year, I think, is going to be very telling because we have those other prospects that you mentioned coming up. And like Ryan Ward clearly knows how to deal with players that have high talent. I mean, his first year in Youngstown, he's working with Jacob Fowler as his goaltender. So, that hiring excited me more for the overall shape of what the Providence staff looks like, as opposed to just the one hire of what it might have meant. Does that make sense?
Yep, exactly. Well, I've got a bunch of precedent. I'm going to start with two of them. I'm not going to go in order here. I'm going to do it differently. But
we'll go in the order that you want to.
Yeah. I'm reading it differently than what everybody else is reading into these quotes. The first one is on Matthew Poitras, and Whitfield said, it was always just going to be a matter of time with Matty. He's a great kid, really talented player. I'm really excited for his opportunity to come this year to really make his mark up there in Boston. Potsy works hard. He puts in the work. That's the first one. The second one is on Frederic Brunet. He was probably our best defenseman from day one right through the end of the season. He's well on his way. Now he just needs a little bit of runway in Boston. He's ready to go mentally, physically, his skill set. He's an NHL player. End quote. Here's how I see it. He's calling the Bruins out. He's saying these guys are ready to play. If you don't play them, that's not on me. That's not on the coaching staff. That's on you, Marco Sturm, Don Sweeney. How do you see it?
Yeah, I know a lot of people are looking at those quotes, and I can't say I disagree with you on that. We want them to play the kids. They have internal people who are saying these kids are ready. I do wonder how much, with quotes like that from Whitfield, I wonder how much, because he also talked about, and I don't know if these are on your list or not, how they need to balance getting kids ready for the NHL and winning in Providence. And it makes me sit here and go, how much was Ryan Mougenel focusing on winning now and maybe contorting the message to upper management for player movement as they were asking him his opinion on certain players? Who does it benefit more to have Matthew Poitras in Providence? Ryan Mougenel, because he's going to he's going to bring them wins, and it's going to make him look good, and it's going to get him back to the NHL.
Which it did.
Yep. And so that's kind of my question is are we going to find out that maybe this whole time Ryan Mougenel was the big roadblock?
I don't know. There's people that'll tell you that he's not. He was all about development. He was all about getting players, and they're blaming it on the drafting as opposed to what actually happened in Providence. I'll get to the quotes he made about Fabian Lysell. When Don Sweeney, the general manager, comes out and says the team is partially to blame, how can you say it's not the team and blame it all on drafting? Which is what's happening there. I really think with those quotes on Poitras and Brunet that he is putting this all on Marco Sturm. He's saying these two guys are ready.
Oh yeah, Whitfield's absolutely saying that.
Yeah, Mike DiPietro the same. His comments about DiPietro. They made room for DiPietro. They traded an NHL backup to give him room. That's where I am on those two quotes. He's called them out. He's put them on notice, saying, "This isn't a Providence issue now. They're yours."
Yeah.
And they have to give him rope. They can't play him for 5 shifts, make a mistake, and sit them for a period.
Is that a problem that we've seen with Sturm, though? Because I don't think it has been. I think he was more willing to put some of the young. I mean, he did it with Husnudinov and Minton and even Hagens in a few games last year. He didn't just let one mistake mean that they were benched for the rest of the game.
No, he shortened his bench at times.
Yeah, every coach does that, though.
He took one mistake. He took James Hagens out of the lineup for Reichel.
Wasn't that the playoff game, though?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Who gives you a better chance to win?
The guy who's making mistakes or the guy who's a little bit more consistent based
Right?
on age?
You know, they had to look at it like this. They weren't going to win that series. So
Yeah,
is
but it
it
doesn't
better
mean
for me
he's
to
not
put?
trying to.
No, it doesn't mean he's not trying to. But you know, if honestly, who gave him the better chance to win, Hagens or Reichel?
Yeah, definitely Hagens. I'm trying to see it from Sturm's perspective, and maybe it's just one of those decisions that you chalk up to first year NHL head coach.
Yeah, definitely, but I don't know.
So,
Let's move on to the other one because that's where I stand on Pod from Brunei, and to a
so
lesser. Or go ahead.
I was just gonna say we're talking about this, and you made that comment about the players developing, hitting that roadblock in Providence, and then some people are just trying to blame it on the drafting. But you and I have been doing, this kind of work for long enough together, and we've had plenty of conversations about their draft history, and realistically, I mean, with the exception of a couple picks in there with like a John Beecher in the first round kind of thing, for the most part, they're picking players with talent. They're just not, and you're not going to hit on every single one of them. But like Urho Vakanainen was a first round pick. He's a solid NHL player. Boston just couldn't get him there. Was that a Boston development problem, or did they just pick the wrong player at that position in the draft? You know what I mean? Like Fabian Lysell, we're going to find out based on how he does in Colorado, did Boston screw up in his development and Sweeney made a good pick, or did we just whiff on the pick and the player's not an NHLer? That's what we're going to really find out with him now in Colorado. Merkulov, same thing.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Let's move on
Yep.
on development or the development part of it. Whitfield said that's always been our main goal down here is to develop players, get them ready for the NHL. Right? That's always been a priority of mine as an assistant, and with the previous head coaches that have always been our number one priority. Um, Okay, I can see it with Whitfield as an assistant coach, and when you're giving Patrick Brown, Riley Tufte, um, premium minutes over Matt Patra or Don Schmellis, um, you're giving them top penalty or power play time and all that. Are you focused on winning or are you focused on developing?
Is that a
That's my
decision?
only question.
No, I agree with the question. My only counter to that would be who gets the final say as to who hops over the boards when? Is it Whitfield as an assistant, or was it Mouchinel as the head coach?
Well, the head coach. Just go to the assistant and say, no, I don't want him out there. Right?
Yeah, and that's why this season for me is probably the most crucial in the rebuild that Boston's trying to do based on what Providence does. Because we could see and we could find out based on how Trent Whitfield handles the players in Providence that Mouginel was the roadblock. Now, it could be more of the same, and it's just the way that, some of the old school coaches think, and we see nothing really all that different down there. But, we won't know until we see it.
Exactly. But I have to apologize. I think it was KPD that asked this question. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But Whitfield was asked whether Cam and Don would be tolerant of losing games in order to develop players. And Whitfield responded with, "Well, that's obviously our main goal." I question that. That's always been our main goal, is to get these players to the NHL. Yeah, I mean, there's always a little bit of give and take. They want us to win, obviously, but it's more of a priority for us to get these players better on a daily basis. And for me, in the American Hockey League, if you've got a good group of guys, and we've always had a good group of leaders, the winning will take care of itself. Um, what's missing here is the fact that the Bruins don't own the Providence Bruins.
Yep,
Mr.
that was my immediate
Renfrew
thought.
owns the Bruins, and winning puts asses in the seats, and assets in the seats bring in money, and that's what Mr. Renfrew is there to do, is make money. Uh, so maybe the Bruins don't care about winning, but Providence ownership does, because that affects the bottom line.
It,
Um, if developing is more important than winning, then why haven't we developed players? Yeah, drafting is a part of it, going after higher floor guys instead of higher ceiling guys like the Beechers and the Fredericks. Um, you know, uh, go back to Jack Stednika. He had a high floor. What happened?
he's having a great AHL career.
Yeah. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny because as soon as you mentioned the question, and obviously the fact that they're asking about what Cam and Don think about it, my immediate reaction was their opinions don't matter. They don't answer to Renfro. Whitfield, while hired by the Bruins, still has to answer to having success in Providence. Otherwise, that owner's going to cause friction for the team.
Yeah.
It's a major politic game that, quite frankly, I'm glad I'm not a part of. But I do agree with his sentiment that if you have a good group, if you're working on growing the players, overall the winning will take care of itself, and that will put asses in the seats. But right now, this whole organization is trying, and maybe it's on the Providence end, maybe it's a disconnect between the two, but they're half pregnant on what they want to do in Providence. They're trying to win, but they're also trying to develop some players, but they're not relying on those young players to do the big minute things. But those young players are the ones that fans want to go there to see. How many games would the Providence Bruins have been able to sell out simply because they had James Hagens in that lineup?
Yeah. I don't know.
They sold out the rink for Springfield because James Hagens was in the lineup on the road.
Yeah.
So if you
I have no doubt in my mind that Whitfield is more oriented to developing than winning. I really do. And now you've got his assistant coaches that, don't get me wrong, I think Ward will be a coveted NHL coach someday. Um, but based on based on the coaching staff, I think their focus is going to be more on developing than it is of winning at this point. And that's good to see. Um, just a quote that he made on why Fabian Lysell or Georgi Merkulov couldn't get over the hump. Maybe it's a little bit of opportunity, or it's not getting the shot. Maybe they weren't exactly interested in he was playing or how he didn't really fit the mold, meaning what the Bruins thought of Lysell. I can't really answer that as to why they didn't really make it. Um, but sometimes the size, the strength, but those are two really gifted offensive players that, yeah, of course, it leaves you wondering a little bit, but that's part of it. I think that's basically Whitfield avoiding the question. He absolutely knows why they didn't make it. Um, he's just not going to come out instantly. Um, that's my thoughts on the Providence coaching. I've grown on Whitfield. I'm interested to see what he does. Um, Interestingly enough, he said the one coach he looks at is Mike Babcock because Babcock coached him for 4 years in junior, and he still stays with him. Um, Interesting and scary at the same time. Um, but he's going to learn, and this is a good year. The prospects aren't really there this year; they're coming next year, and we'll see what happens then.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's him politically answering the question without actually answering it. But I do think his answer gives us a
Yeah.
little insight into the fact that it's a little bit of everything that you and I have been talking about and kind of assuming what the issue was. Some of it's on the players, some of it's on the organization, some of it's on the circumstances. I mean, we can sit here and go, well, Matthew Poitras should have stayed up last year after his outdoor game. But once you were getting healthy, someone had to go back down. And that's the organization picking someone. And, you know, obviously in hindsight, we can go back and go, yeah, you should have done this. Your decisions in the moment are going to be different than what they are looking back 3 years ago. The draft is a perfect example of the same hindsight. But, as far as an opportunity for like Georgi Merkulov, no, he wasn't put in the best of circumstances when he was called up, but the circumstances he was given, he didn't maximize.
Right. Absolutely.
So
Um,
I do think there was a bit of an answer, non-answer in there.
to add on Providence,
Not really, no. I mean, I think, like I said, this is going to be
anything
the
else to
most
add?
exciting year for them. What's that?
Okay, let's do the World Junior Summer Showcase. And let me start off with saying, remember 1 year ago that Will Zellers wasn't even invited to it and ended up making the World Junior roster in December. So I went to a couple of the games. Cooper Simpson and Moore are there representing the Bruins, fighting for a bottom six role. And I'll say at this point, they really don't look like they're going to be making the roster. I wasn't excited about them one bit, but like Zellers, they could still work their way onto the roster by having good seasons at North Dakota and BC. Well, at least to start the year, and just like Will Zellers did, and have them take notice.
Yeah. There's still plenty of
Now,
time.
I don't know if you got to see any of the games. What's that?
I said no. I agree with you. There's still plenty of time for them to showcase what they have to make
Yeah,
this roster. And Will Moore is going to be very interesting to see this year, especially if he doesn't make the roster, because that with where he's going to be in BC's lineup, he's going to have an opportunity to put that "fu" for not picking me in his game and really showcase that in the NCAA.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, fans have reason to be
We should also
excited with it.
mention that. Yeah, we should
Go
also
ahead. Sorry.
mention that Ashik Blanar is with the Czech team, looking to make the World Junior roster this year, and that would probably be it for Bruins prospects. Uh, now that we know that Russia won't be taking part in the tournament.
Yeah, it's a bummer that they won't be, but it's outside of hockey's control over the tournament's control
Yeah,
entirely. So, we can dwell on it not happening, or we can just enjoy the fact that there are games that are going on and we can look at who's there.
exactly. So, moving right along because we're way behind and I got to go babysit. So, the Hlinka Gretzky starts this up. Um, if anybody wants to see the players that are taking part, just go to Dom.Hockey. I've got every there. Um, some interesting prospects to watch for the 2027 draft if you want to get a head start. And, it's always a great tournament. It's the one that starts the draft year. So the thing I want to talk about most is we know there are teams looking to make moves. The Bruins, one of them. And every NHL GM is going to be there. They're going to start arriving in Edmonton tomorrow or Monday ahead of the tournament. A lot of downtime between games and a lot of discussions going on. Um, we know there are teams looking for defensemen, but I'm sure Don Sweeney's going to be asked a lot face to face about Pavel Zacha. What do you think?
Absolutely. He's going to be asked about him. He'll be asked about a lot of the players that they have that could be that other teams look at Boston's roster and go, maybe we can get something. We can give something up for that. I'm sure he'll get asked about Geeky. He'll get asked about Zacha. He'll get asked about anybody on this roster, probably with the exception of like David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, and Jeremy Swayman. Just because most teams are going to look at those three and go, we're going to have to give up too much. It's not worth it.
Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting time. I would love to be there, and maybe put out a tweet that Don Sweeney is talking to so and so. So there's going to be a trade there. I shouldn't have said that, but
GM
there'll be a
shows
lot
up
of
to hockey
discussions
event.
going on. Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything is going to happen, but times like this when GMs are running where groundwork is laid for something to come later. There's still 2 months before the season starts, 7 weeks to training camp. So, groundwork will probably be laid here for something to come in the future.
It also only takes one injury in camp where another team doesn't know what's going to happen with a player. Someone goes down with an injury, and now all of a sudden they're calling Boston going, you were talking to this other team about Henry Jokiharju, and we want him now. We need him now, and we'll pay just this much, a little bit more than what they were willing to pay 3 months ago, and we'll call it a done deal.
Yeah. I mean, crap happens. So, we'll see. We'll see what uh, but like I said, I expect a lot of conversations to take place.
Yeah, the weeks following that, I'm looking forward to trying to find the tournament. I think I know where it's going to be airing and how I'll be able to view it and whatnot, but I'm going to try and follow along with it as well. I've always wanted to, and it just hasn't always worked out. So I'm looking forward to it. As we mentioned, this is probably going to be a little bit shorter of an episode, and I know you're running on some time crunch here. What else did you have on your hit list to get to?
Well, just really quickly, Dauber Prospects came out with their top 20 rankings and players to watch for the Bruins. I think you have them there. The first list is players that will probably make the Bruins or see time this season to see action. Ivan, I can see at if there's an injury. Riley Duran, I can see if there's a couple injuries. Cole Koepke hasn't been with the team for 2 years. Ryan Walsh is in college. Maybe, and I highly doubt it, once his college season is over. Matvey Kotkov in Russia, drafted this year. I doubt he sees NHL action, but maybe in the future. Jacob Van Duven has played 8 games of defense in his career. So he's not going to see action this year. Maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, we'll see. But yeah, that's that list. The most interesting one I wanted to get to is their top 20 Bruins prospects. If you could put that one up, Chris.
That one didn't come through, but I can grab it real quick. I'm going to try and pull it up.
So I don't have any problem with their first 6. They have James Higgins, Dean Letourneau, Matt Poitras, Will Zellers, Will Moore, Cooper Simpson. What gets me of their top 20 list is Vasek Blanar is not on it.
Here we go.
And he's definitely on mine. And they have Don Slotchmelis, who I would argue, if he wasn't injured, would be fighting to get an opening night roster spot in Boston at number 16. Those are the 2 biggest ones that stand out for me.
The first one that I noticed was Ivan at 8.
Yeah, way out of there. Like Frederic Brunet at 10. I don't know. Like I said, the first 5 or 6 I have no issue with, but the rest of the list, we can debate every single one of them.
Yeah, I mean there's some egregious stuff in my opinion as well, but like the stuff that you pointed out, there's Watch Mellis being so low. His injury definitely hurts his stock for the start of the year, but depending on where this team goes, if we see any sort of sell by the trade deadline, he's probably your first guy up from Providence. If Poitras makes the team, Brunet makes the team, Minton's in the lineup, higher up in the lineup, Hagens is on the team, then, they're going to look for reasons to give Riley Duran some time. They're going to look for reasons to get Losh Mellis in the lineup. Like, I can't see Ivan being so high on this list. That one really bothers me. And then, like you said, the other list there, likely to see NHL action. You've got guys that aren't even on this team anymore. So that just makes me question a lot of these other decisions. And, like Fraser Minton's not even a prospect anymore, as we were mentioning.
No.
So I have a lot of issues with this. And Ivanov, as someone's pointing out in the comments, Ivanov is at 18. I don't think he should be that low. I think his ceiling is much higher. It's just going to take a little while for him to get there. Similar to Dane Letourneau. We saw it, 2 years ago, right after Letourneau was drafted. You and I, we saw the takes and we commented on him. Dane Letourneau is the best prospect in the Bruins prospect pool. And then all it took was for one bad season in Boston, and he was the worst bust of all time. And then he has a good bounce back season because he's healthy, and now he's their number 1, number 2 prospect again.
Yeah. I will say this, to be fair to Dauber prospects, is, there's a few things I don't agree with, but the whole article is actually pretty good. They cover all the draft picks, where the team is, so on and so forth.
It's just, I know if I'm feeling that way, other fans who know these things are probably going to feel that way too. And that's what we're here for. We're here to convey all aspects of opinions and thoughts and stuff like that. So without looking through the article just yet, I'm sure most of it is probably better than those errors would make you think. Was there anything else on your list to get to?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I know it's a little bit rushed today. We lost an hour thanks to the power outage, and just trying to quickly get through everything for now.
There's one thing that I wanted to touch on real quick. I don't think it's much of a story, but there are people who are out there freaking out about it. And then we've got a couple comments that I just want to scan through real quick before we get going.
Yeah.
Were you able to catch any of Charlie McAvoy's appearance on the Tkachuk Brothers podcast?
Okay, I saw the clip that everybody was complaining about, and then I just left it. I didn't even bother because for me, it's a nothing. It's I got a new saying now. Make the right choices, choose happiness. That's it. And it's just I wasn't going to be bothered going through all the comments and all that. It's nothing to worry about.
I didn't want to dissect it. My only thought was I saw the outrage and then I went, all right, I really don't want to do this, but ended up listening to the whole segment. I was like, this is what we're freaking out over? Come on. Like giant nothing burger.
Dog days of summer, right?
Days of summer, and like it just doesn't. There's not enough to dissect there. It's not anything that I would worry about. Look at the Bruins gnome and move on. What'd you say his name was again?
Nirmal Egbert.
Alrighty, yeah. We'll enjoy some time with him. David did ask a question about the comparing Minton's next contract with Ivan Demidov's current contract, the one that he just recently signed. And then, of course, we've got some back and forth in there on that one. We talked a little bit about what Fraser Minton's contract could look like last week. I don't want to dive completely into that conversation just because, It's going to be a wait and see. It all depends on when he signs that contract. If he signs it today, it's different than if he signs it in a month. It's different if he signs it in 3 months and 6 months and so on and so forth. So if you tell me a contract is coming by the end of the week, then we can have a little bit more of a discussion as to exactly what that looks like. Agent's going to come in high, team's going to come in low, and they're going to negotiate. There's going to be things like no trade clauses put in there based on when they can start, term, all of that stuff. So until he signs the contract, yeah, people are going to throw out numbers, and it's like, yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. But is the player going to do that?
I think you're looking more at a little bit more than what Colin Graff signed for. You're Montreal locked in their prospects at the right time. At this point, we're seeing players aren't going for those 7-8 year deals. They want a deal that gets them to unrestricted free agency or maybe a year before, get paid, and then lock in that big deal that brings them to their mid-30s and retirement. I don't think in Mitten's case it's going to be a 7-year max deal. We're not going to see that for Fraser Mitten, not on his next contract. I think we're looking at a Colin Graff type deal.
And I think last week, the one that we were talking about was like a 3 by roughly 6, somewhere in that range. Again, it's going to be a little different depending on how the player views himself. And, they could be sitting there going, let's see how he starts the season. If he starts the season strong, then 6 could look like a steal 2 years from now. And the player's going to sit there and try and leverage that. If he starts off slow, well, then you sit there and throw out the Colin Graff contract and be like, let's do this one. And then if he picks it up, you've got one of the best steals of a contract. So
I don't think we're going to see max deals. We haven't seen many max deals since July 1st, have we?
No, we really haven't.
Not into it.
Yeah, the players are just not into it as much anymore.
No, with the way the cap is skyrocketing, they're not interested. Get some money now. And then I get a second contract. Like you look at Carlson's deal.
Yep.
$100 million now, $100 million on his next contract.
Yep. And you can also look Carlson, Bedard, and Celebrini, and now you can throw Colin Graff in the mix. 3 to 5 year contracts. Shorter term.
Why do you think Connor McDavid didn't sign a max contract on his last one? Because they knew where the cap was going.
Yeah, couple factors.
He'll probably be the first $20 million a year player.
The only other one I can think of might be Cale Makar.
Yeah, he could be there.
But even then, I'm not sure he hits the 20 mark simply because of when he needs his new contract.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it could end up being McDavid. I'd have to look and see what other players of that caliber are coming up, but I don't think any of them are really going to come close to the 20 mil mark the way McDavid would.
No. So maybe Austin Matthews?
Yeah, he really needs to have a strong couple seasons, though. He really does.
So players aren't looking for max deals right now, not when they're young, because they can cash in twice.
Yeah.
And go and make the big bucks. So yeah, I don't see an 8-year deal for Fraser Mitten.
Long term, and I know we just got a whole new CBA extension and all that stuff taken care of, but long term, do you think that's something that the owners are going to look at and go, we need to do more when they first come out for restricting our ability to lose these players, right, within those first few years? Because right now they hit the unrestricted free agency at age 27, Do you think
That's not going to change. That's not going to. Remember, it used to be 31.
I'm just saying, do you think there's a possibility that down the road there's some problem in that part of the CBA that they have to hammer out?
They won't. The NHL went through 2 lockouts to get to try and keep it at, and the union just would not give up. They would
Nor should
not.
they.
Nor should they. So I think we're going to see it at 27, and it's going to stay there. What the big talk is the no movement clauses and the no trade clauses. That's going to be a big issue in the next CBA, and it will be, because if I sign you and you have a no movement clause and I want to trade you, you have the right to say no, and then
Yes.
I'm stuck with you. But if you come to me and say I want you to trade me, but I will only go to these 2 teams, the
You
onus
don't have,
leaves, and
but here's the
the
thing, you
onus.
don't have to trade me.
But I don't want a player that doesn't want to be here. So
So then,
if I
so,
have to ask you to waive your no movement clause so that I can trade you, shouldn't you have to waive your no movement clause to come to me and say you need to trade me?
yes. If
You
I,
can't
I
limit,
think so. I
and
agree with that sentiment.
that's going to be the big, that'd be the next big stumbling block, um, in the next CBA. And people think this no movement clause is a new thing. It's not. Eddie Shore had a no movement clause way back in the 1930s.
So my counter to that, though, is if you're the GM, negotiate it better. If you're worried that a player is potentially going to sit there and say in 5 years I don't want to be here, then negotiate that clause to open up. Like we're about to see that happen with Hampus Lindholm for the Bruins. He had a full no move clause. This is his last year of it, and then it opens up next year. So does it open up to the entire league? No, but it gives Don Sweeney the flexibility to move off of him if he decides that's the best move for Boston. So as a general manager, he looked at the Hampus Lindholm situation and said, depending on where we are in X years, we might want to find a way out of this. So give us, I forget what it is. I think he's got a 16 team list or 10 team list this first year.
Yeah.
And I think it exponentially gets larger as the contract comes closer to ending. And so by the end of it, he's got like a 7 or 8 team no trade list.
I don't know. When you're looking at say a Quinn Hughes, you have to give him a no movement clause. Take Austin Matthews is a better example. When you sign Austin Matthews to his contract, you absolutely give him a no move clause. But a lot of talk this summer was he didn't like the direction where the team was at, and he would see whether he wanted to stay in Toronto. You can't foresee a situation like that happening, where you would negotiate a no restrictions on a no movement or no trade clause.
No, but in your example with Austin Matthews right now, who put the organization to be in a mess of a situation that they're in right now? The organization did that to themselves.
Right, but I'm saying that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is from year to year, there's things that happen that you cannot forecast.
Yeah, I agree.
Which changes things.
They are so looking at Austin Matthews. They looked at Austin Matthews years ago and said, you are the foundation of our forward group. We are building around you. You are the number one piece to this group. Here's your no movement clause. Right?
Right.
So who changed around that?
It doesn't matter, Chris. Things change. That's
Yes,
why players ask for trades.
Yes, but if
I don't care if it's Austin Matthews, Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy, Brady Tkachuk. Things change.
Yes.
You sign a player to an 8-year contract. You give him a no movement clause. You don't know where you're going to be 3 years from now.
That player, though, is beholden to the same contract as the team. So if you as a player come to me and say, trade me.
Exactly my point.
Right.
Exactly the point I made.
If you say trade me right now, as it sits, if you come to me and say, you trade me right now, I have a full no move clause and I don't want to be here. I go, great. Give me at least 6 teams to work with. And you go, here are 2. All right, well, I need 4 more. Otherwise, I can't do anything for you.
No.
If you don't want to be here, then go sit down. Don't be here. Now,
no team is going to do that because you got a player making $12 million. He's still counting towards the cap.
Who looks bad in that situation, the team or the player?
The team does.
Because the player went to the team and said, I want out? If
team,
you're the organization, what looks worse?
That's not how fans think. Fans will think, well, trade him. Get rid of him.
Are you operating your organization based on what fans think? Or are you operating your organization based on what's best for your team?
I'm not saying it's the way you operate. I'm talking about how our listeners view things. You look at Detroit now. Go ask Red Wings fans now. At first they were blaming Larkin. Now they're blaming the organization for not trading him yet. It's all shifted. And it was Larkin as the one that asked for the trade.
Yeah.
Originally they blamed Larkin because he backstabbed them, he asked them for a trade. Now they're blaming the organization because he hasn't been moved yet.
They're also putting the blame on the organization because the organization basically raised their hand and said, we're moving on from the general manager who caused this. So the organization took the blame themselves. If you look at what happened between Leo Carlsson and the Ducks, the agent came out and said, this was all on us. We told them to not sign anything. We told them that we were waiting. So everybody who was blaming Pat Verbeek now all of a sudden has to shift their blame to the agent for this as a problem. The agent came out and said, do not blame Pat Verbeek. No one's mad at the agent because he did his job. People are mad at the Detroit Red Wings right now because they came out and they said this was caused by Yzerman. And now they're being looked at what they're upset about is they're saying if this was Yzerman's fault, why has he been in charge for the last 4 years when he's done other things on the same path of destruction for this organization? Why didn't you get rid of him 2, 3, 4 years ago?
We're talking to different fans then, because the ones I talk to are saying they should have traded him by now. They should have taken the best offer on the table.
Do we know what that best offer was?
Well, apparently they do, because that's what they're saying.
Because without knowing what that best offer was that Yzerman was able to put together, we don't know if keeping him was the best move or not, but we know that the team came out and said
we never will. But we never will. Yet fans still put blame on.
Yeah, fans are going to fan. Let them.
Exactly.
They can be wrong.
Let's move on because
fans are Dom. You're talking about the same fans who looked at that Charlie McAvoy appearance on Wingmen and freaked out.
I know, but that's why I don't like having these discussions. You know, I don't like having these discussions.
Anyway,
it all started about no movement clauses and what I believe should happen, and it turns into all this. And
ironically, we agreed on that point too. If the player goes to the team, then they're basically saying, "I waive my no move clause."
And that should be end of discussion. I really don't care what fans of another team think. I don't.
Anyway.
But then I showed you yesterday. I get some of the stupid messages every day. I literally get hundreds of them. Hundreds of them. Like the one I showed you yesterday.
What we should do is we should bring them on and address them on the show.
Yeah. Like I had a guy message me and say, "Hi, Dominic." So I answered right back. "Hi, how are you doing?" Nothing. 12 hours later, I'm like, "Why did you message me?" And nothing. 12 hours later, he's like, "Oh, I just messaged to say hello. I guess I could ask what's going on with Matt Poitras."
Conversation over.
I get all sorts of conversations. All sorts of them. I had to screenshot that one and send it to you because I know you don't believe me sometimes, but...
Oh, no, I believe you. I just, like I said, I think in some instances we should be addressing some of them on the show. Not necessarily with the usernames and whatnot, but it would definitely be interesting so people understand what you get in that inbox.
Actually, Chris is working on a method to actually have guests come on instead of typing out their messages, can actually speak to us and ask their questions live.
Yeah, I'm looking into that. I will put it out there that if someone is interested in production of a show like this, we could also use those hands as well. Any kind of help. If anybody wants to work with us on this and a few other things, definitely to reach out to one of us. If you reach out to Dom, he'll send you my way anyway. But yeah, anybody who's interested in that, definitely let us know. Dom, you got anything else? I know you got a heart out here, so
all I gotta say is make the right choices, choose happiness.
Words to live by.
Yes.
Otherwise, go Bees.
Go Bees.
Welcome to the Dom.Hockey Podcast, proudly presented by Bench Rates. Created by a former hockey player, Bench Rates uses a proprietary algorithm to assign a true monetary value to a player's on-ice contributions and lets you compare that value directly to his cap hit. Bench Rates evaluates professional players across leagues worldwide, including the NHL and AHL. Learn more at benchrates.com. Also presented by McKeen's Hockey. McKeen's produces the premier NHL draft guide featuring more than 200 player reports and comprehensive rankings. They also deliver in-depth prospect coverage through their annual team-by-team rankings and their trusted hockey pool yearbook. Visit mckeens.com and subscribe for just $16.50 Canadian for 3 months.